Welcome to episode 81 of the Driving Forward podcast. It is Thursday, May 8th, 2025. Boy, it's been a minute since I've been back in the studio. We've been running all over the place. Last week, we were at Broker Carrier Summit, and that was pretty impressive. We were very engaged. So whether you're joining us live or listening on one of our 18 platforms, including Wreaths Across America Radio, where we broadcast every Tuesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Time, we appreciate your support. Next week, we have Robert Bain and Zach Barnhouse at the Freight Fraud Symposium in Dallas, Texas. We meaning GLCS. The Freight Fraud Symposium on May 14th brings together industry leaders to tackle rising scams like double brokering and cyber attacks. It's a must attend for anyone serious about freight security. And next week on Driving Forward, I'll be joined by Pam Polyak, the CEO of Polyak Trucking and founder of Pamela J. Polyak Consulting. We'll be talking about growing up in a family business, leading through change, and how she's helping others find their own path to success in trucking and beyond. It should be a thoughtful conversation on leadership and legacy and what it really takes to build something that lasts. So get ready. We're locking in on our next freight movement event. The next one's in Chicagoland, and we're partnering with our friends at Journey. So Will Jenkins and the whole team, we just finalized this yesterday. It's June 26th in Rosemont, Illinois at Joe's Live. We don't have any graphics done yet. We don't have our Eventbrite up, but stay tuned for the sign-up link and a number of more details. We're super excited about this one. We should be able to handle upwards of 200 people. Really excited about getting everybody together in Chicagoland, right in the Rosemont area. So one of my favorite spaces out there. So in an industry full of turnover, volatility, and big promises, Julie Andrich delivers results. She's the CEO of Autumn Transport, a bulk freight carrier that's doubled its revenue, grown its fleet, and built one of the most respected cultures in the game. But this isn't a story about inheritance. It's a story about hustle. Julie didn't inherit her title. She earned it. Starting as a dispatch assistant in 1995, she worked every role in the building before stepping up to lead. Today, she runs a company where values like integrity, service, and family aren't just painted on the walls, they drive every decision. If you're trying to grow your business, retain drivers, or lead with actual substance, this conversation is in your playbook. Get ready for real talk on trucking leadership, fleet growth, driver retention, and what it takes to run a freight company people actually want to work for. So we just lost Julie, some technical difficulties there. I'm going to give her a few minutes to come back. So I think that kind of kicking back the last few weeks and where we've all been, I think Julie's just logging back in, and here she is. So Julie, welcome. I knew that was going to happen, so I jinxed this earlier. Julie, welcome to the show. You missed my introduction. That's all you missed, but welcome to the show.
Yeah. Appreciate
you coming on.
A heck of a time for an IT snafu. My laptop decided it was going to restart.
Well, that always seems to happen at the worst time. So
yes.
It is what it is. You made it back. I knew if I just kept doing my intro and kept trying to stretch it out, that I would get you back eventually. And we only missed it by a couple of seconds. So kicking it off, So you've been in this game as long as I have for the most part. You started as a dispatch assistant, 30 years ago, or nearly 30 years ago. Um, what do you remember about those days? And did you ever think that you were going to eventually be the CEO?
I absolutely did not ever think I was going to be the CEO. But as I think back, 30 years ago, I was 24 when I started. So we can all do the math.
Fair enough.
And I really started as a temp. My parents owned the business and never had an intention of working for the company business. Nor did my sister, but my folks needed a temporary worker to start entering dispatchers, old phone books, and Rolodexes into a new database that we had just purchased. So they said, you know what, you can work around the other paid jobs you're doing right now, and you can enter these phone numbers into this database. So started doing that. I had a card table and chair set up, and we didn't have computers on every desk back then. So I had a computer, card table, and a chair, and started with the first phone book and started typing lots of questions. I think dispatchers write about as well as doctors and pharmacists. Their penmanship isn't great. So got to know the guys a little bit better in that room, and couldn't believe how much like action there was in that room. I had never really spent a lot of time around the business other than maybe as a kid doing some filing in the summer or whatever. So really kind of fell in love. And then my folks said, hey, would you want to start working with Max? He needs an assistant in dispatch. And I said, well, we'll start that. So my parents both said, you can quit anytime if you don't like it. Here I am 30 years later because I love it. But some of the things I remember from first starting, I'd worked through high school and college as a server. And then my first job out of college, I managed a bar and restaurant downtown Minneapolis. So I was very used to dealing with the public, customer service, things of that nature, but never really used to working with truck drivers.
Sure.
So one of my first memories of doing that, Max wouldn't let me get on the phone for about the first 6 months I worked there. Or worked here. And I remember the first time he let me get on the phone, we had a 5-truck dedicated operation out of South St. Paul. And he let me take driver check calls. And those guys could smell the blood in the water, and they were the sharks. And they tried to catch me at everything that I didn't know for probably the first 2 years I worked here. Like they'd call and give me the wrong check call to see if I knew if they were on the loading end or the unloading end, or oh my gosh, they had so much fun at my expense. And I'm not embarrassed to admit I had a couple tears. I'd have to go to the ladies' room sometimes and have some tears because they were pretty tough on me, but it definitely makes me who I am today.
Well, that's that era, those check calls, the manual check calls back in the day where, you actually wrote them down or punched them in. I go back to card filing systems. That's what I worked. So I started in bulk too in the Minneapolis area. Actually probably a competitor. So at the same time that you started in an office for the most part. So but we would literally do the same thing. You'd take the check call, you'd write it. Well, I don't know if you were on a computer or whatever, but we would write it on a piece of paper. And so I came from a driver role, so maybe didn't have the same challenge as that because I actually was a driver for them at the same time. But yeah, I think, what you said, smelling the blood in the water, I think everybody kind of did that, but it was when you look at what that would get you in the long run, that gets you that tenure and you become more aware of kind of what people are up to. But a question that comes to mind here is, so you originally you said you were running more in the service industry before you came to Autumn Transport. So was that kind of your career path before that, or were you thinking you were going to do something else? Did you have different aspirations?
I always thought I wanted to be in sales. And I've learned now that that certainly isn't how I'm wired, but I thought that at the time that would be something for me. And what I really realized is that I'm really wired for service, serving people and building relationships that way, but more of a service than a sales. And I know that they can be similar,
Right.
but more
Absolutely.
on the service end.
Yeah. I think we share that in common too. It took me a long time to learn how to sell, decades to learn how to sell. I was very, very good at service. When I consider myself top notch there, but if you asked me to go in and do a net new sales, I was horrible at it. So
Yeah.
now I'm a little different, but that took decades to get there. So
Yeah.
absolutely. So another thing, when we were talking earlier, and I think you've said this in other areas, that um, you've never wanted to be known as the owner's kid or anything like that. So what did it take for you throughout the years to earn the respect in the business that your parents built and not be the owner's kid?
Right. Yeah, I think the owner's kid moniker to me kind of meant that you were entitled to the position, whether you were qualified for it or not, maybe spoiled. And I didn't ever want that attached to me. Uh, I grew up on a farm in Lake Elmo and learned how to work hard from a pretty early age. And I wanted to transfer that work ethic. It follows me where I go. So to show up before everybody else in the office. So like kind of two pieces of street cred for me and earning some respect, not only in the office, but with the owner operators on the road. That meant I came in early every day and I was the last to leave. It meant that looking for things more than what I was asked to do as part of my job and seeing other things that needed to be done and doing them and not waiting for somebody to ask me to do it. With the owner operators on the road, that was a whole nother ball game because, and they've said it to me, what could you possibly know about driving a truck? What could you possibly know about trucking? You're a 25-year-old woman and you've got no experience. And I had to learn the hard way how to back that up by asking more questions than I thought I had answers for, admitting I don't know the answer, but I'll go find out, and really kind of digging deep into our equipment, our customers. What does it take to get a truck from A to B to C to D and home on time with a good paycheck? And asking those questions and just continuous learning until I could respond back. What could you know about driving a truck? I could confidently say, I've never driven a truck, but here's what I know in my heart, what it's going to take for you to make money and have a good work-life balance. So that took a long time.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I think that's a question that a lot of people get fielded, or that a lot of people are fielded this in this industry, especially if you don't come up through a driving role in this industry. Mm-hmm. It's one that I question myself. It's been a long time since I've driven a truck. So, the world has changed so much these days. So, the difference between a driver today and a driver 15 years ago is substantial. So that has evolved so much over the last 30 years. We used to hand the keys to a driver and say, go. Here's a safety pamphlet, sit down, say hi, learn with them a little bit. I hate to say this comparative to what we do today, but that's what we used to do. Here's the keys, after we have qualified them, of course, and see you later. So that's not what we do today. Much more detailed than that, but the world has changed. So, and you've been very tenacious on learning all of those things, and that's a lifetime of knowledge, and that's where you have to start. So I look back on my history and how I tackled everything, coming in as a driver and having to learn the business side. So just sitting down with people and speaking with people where, I was the youngest person in the room, but yet everyone looked to me for answers, and I had to be the first one in and the last one out, for a different reason, for the opposite reason. So,
well, I had a really cool opportunity also and it all happened, not even planned, but to be able to sit in every seat in our operations for the first 10 years. In one instance, it was because of an unexpected illness of a dispatcher that ran a whole fleet. And one day he was there, the next day he was hospitalized long-term. And my dad looked at me and he says, well, you better go sit over there and figure it out. Right. And I had enough dispatch experience, but had no idea who the customers were, no idea who those owner operators were, lanes, rates, or anything. And just getting stuck in that seat and being told to figure it out was a benefit to me, a little painful and rough at the beginning, but I had that opportunity over a 10-year period to sit in every seat in our operation. And that's what really helped.
Yeah. I've done similar things. I think that's what makes people like yourself uniquely suited to run your organization. You've done everything. You've sat in every chair. You've looked at, and it may not be recently, but you can speak with authority at every role in your organization. And certainly, someone today can probably do it more efficiently than what you would have to do if you sat down there today. But you've done it before, so I say that all the time. I've recruited thousands of drivers. I've billed tens of thousands, if not more, loads. So, do I want to do it tomorrow? No, I want to. We'll hire somebody for that. But that you have the experience, what the life is like to do that, and you understand what the functions are on a day-to-day basis there. And I think that's extremely important for somebody, especially as a mid-market carrier, especially, that's imperative in your role today. So that's a great way to end up in that chair. So you've been leading Autumn now for right around 10 years.
Yep.
In the CEO role. So,
yes.
So when you knew that was going to happen, and you were going to take that position, what was your mindset going in? What was your thoughts? And were you ready for it? Were you feeling the weight of kind of your family legacy there, or kind of what was your thoughts there?
It's a great question. I had 20 years in the business at that point. I had my first 10 years kind of moving from division to division in the operations end. And then my next 10 years managing the operation, where I still filled in for everybody's vacation. I was able to get a little bit more involved in trailer purchasing and other ancillary things that my dad would include me in on meetings and whatnot. Maybe a little bit of banking too, but not much. And then we had 6 months notice that my dad was dying. So that part, while you can kind of prepare for, okay, it's not sudden, but you still really can't prepare for that day that you walk in and here we are. So I had spent 20 years working in the business and 0 years working on the business.
Yeah.
And I reached out to a family friend, and asked if he would meet with me quarterly to help me get to read a balance sheet, to read a cash flow statement, tell me about this. And he would send me back quarterly with really good challenge questions and tasks to tackle. That was very helpful. We did that for 2 years together. Still an awesome family friend. And I'm so appreciative of that, because I wouldn't have known where else to go. And there's a big difference between working in the business and on the business.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I try to work on the business as much as possible, but occasionally you get pulled back into it. So,
yeah.
That's absolutely a huge differentiator. And when you're not expecting that, that's a tough family thing. So that's one of the problems with family businesses, is that you have the family side of it, and then you have the business side of it, and you have those two emotional things that you have to go through. So, that's tough. So, so that you have to go through the transition of that, and then you have to go through the education of that. And I know a couple carriers here in town that have gone through similar scenarios, and it's a lot of education. And kudos to you and on coming out through that, even through the difficult times. So,
well, and you mentioned too, it's a family business, and you asked the question about the weight of the legacy, and I'll be honest, the fear of, well, my dad ran this place his entire life successfully. What if I screw up?
right.
Like, it's awful. It's an
Yeah.
awful feeling. And then what's my mom going to think, or what's my sister going to think, and whatever. And I'm grateful that that's not what happened, but there is a real element of fear in that as time goes on and you get, a little more progress and a little more success, that tends to go away. It's not the little devil on your shoulder, but yeah, there's weight in that for sure when you're in a family business.
Yeah, absolutely. And all the expectations that come with them. So they are what they are. So,
yeah.
So since you've taken over, you've had some growth. You've had some positive things, lots of positive things. So, what are some of the moments that have made that possible?
So we have an amazing team here, an all-star team of people that they're absolutely invested, and they do want to grow this place like it's their own. So giving people the opportunity to take some risk, look hard for new business. We've got some good hunters here that are looking for new business, and we've got awesome farmers who just love on our customers and love on our owner operators. But giving people the chance to chase that themselves. I mean, they are in it like it's their family business too, and giving people empowerment to lead and go with it, I think is the whole reason why we've grown.
That's great. Yeah. I've been much more aware of your business since you've taken your role. So, very much so in the last 6 or 7 years, I would say, it's become much more noticed by me. And just so everyone know, I mean, I'm not far away from, I mean, we're in the same market. So, Minnesota carrier, I live in Minnesota. So, having been in trucking for 3 decades here. So, not to mention, we sort of were reintroduced through Chris Thomas, who's been on this particular show a countless number of times. So, I just saw him last week, by the way, too. So,
he's got a new Mac.
I haven't been able to see it. I should have just went out and saw it. He had it parked in Indianapolis when he stopped by while I was there. So I did get to see him for a brief minute. But I'm excited that he's got his new dedicated run with you guys. I'm excited that he decided to pick a direction. So that's a beautiful thing. And this is a debate that I've had with him over the last year and a half. So I think I've known him about that long now. So and that's just, I think, an testament to Autumn. He's been with you guys a very long time, and the fact that he's committing to a new truck, and this dedicated lane is with all the discussions I've had with Chris over a period of time. That's a great thing, and a testament to the whole crew, amongst other people that we've met with at your organization. Something to go with what you just said. We were talking a bit ago, and you said someone that was new in the organization, she's been here 3 years. When I talk to other companies, a 3-year person is fairly tenured. So, do you have any idea what the average office staff employee has been at Autumn for?
I don't know what the stat is, but like Julie Arndt here is going to retire in September, and she's been here 15 years, which is a
Yeah.
third of Autumn's existence. And she's been in the same seat for 15 years in our pneumatic dispatch.
Yeah.
But we've got some long timers.
Yeah.
Over the years.
Yep. That's great. That's great. So moving along with the growth and strategy here, and how things have gone, what's something you didn't expect to be difficult, and yet it was as a CEO, and how have you learned to manage with it?
Yeah, COVID.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And COVID was good to us in the bulk side of things.
Sure.
We did not suffer like the van and the reefer people did. We were fortunate enough here to have implemented in IT infrastructure. I say that after my computer restarted at the beginning here, but we had just implemented a way for people to log in virtually from home, thinking in the end of 2019 when we implemented that, well, we've got some people that drive from the West Metro or from a fair distance, and wouldn't it be nice if we had a snow day if they could just plug in and work from home?
Yeah.
And never really had a chance to try it until March of 2020, and we had a group of people that decided they wanted to work from home, and a group of people that said, you know what, we just want to come to the office anyway. The challenge in that, so our IT was awesome. Like, we were set up. I'm so glad we weren't behind the 8 ball on that, because then everybody would have had to come to the office. And I think that would have been
right
difficult, because some people didn't want to come in. But the challenge of mask or no mask, what is everybody has an opinion, everybody has a vote. And then my biggest challenge was, we're going to put a line in the sand here, and this is how we're going to run our business. And you can stay or you don't have to stay, but this is what we're doing. And really, that was maybe my first big stand on not taking a whole lot of collaboration. And guys, we got work to do here. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those were interesting times. So, and surprising, a lot of companies, at least initially, I think the COVID hit a lot of companies after. We a lot of companies were doing a lot for the first 2 years, and then depending upon what niche you're in the industries, if you were hauling automotive, you got hit really hard. But some of them were going wild, and I remember working with companies at that time. None of us really got to take too much of a break, but we were all trying to figure out how to make it work. So, I was just talking to another business owner yesterday who had said, I couldn't keep the news out of my office. They, just kept wanting more and more information from us. And, they're like, we're working 14, 16, 18 hours a day and trying to do more with what we have than possible. And you're just trying to hold the ship together through this thing. So,
right.
So yeah, that was certainly I think that tested all of us. It showed everyone what could be done. And it's never really stopped.
No.
So I think we continue to go through it. So
when you're the CEO, everybody's looking at you like, what are we doing?
Right.
And
right.
you have to pick a path.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful everybody stayed. And not only did everybody stay, nobody said, you're nuts, Julie, we're not doing this. Everybody said, yeah, we're staying, and yeah, we're doing this.
Yeah.
And we had some really great years through that.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So let's dig a little deeper into the people and your organization, because this is broadcasted. Anytime I talk to anyone from Autumn, and anyone, it quickly moves to this actually in any discussion. Actually, before we get to this question, I'm going to take a little bit of a break, because I think we're coming up on that time. So if anyone has questions for Julie, queue them up. We're going to take a little bit of a break here, but if you have any questions at all about anything Autumn Transport or Julie Andrich, queue them up, shoot them over. We're happy to answer. And we'll be out on break for about a minute and a half, and we'll see you when we get back. If your fleet's downtime looks like chaos, you're missing out on GLCS. In the fast-paced world of trucking and logistics, time is everything. Meet GLCS, your expert partner in managed IT services. We integrate seamlessly with your team, bringing seasoned IT professionals with deep transportation and logistics expertise. Imagine your software updates running smoothly, complex issues resolved quickly, and operations humming with efficiency. GLCS has your back. Our support doesn't just fix problems, it prevents them. With our industry connections and proactive approach, we keep your trucks rolling and your brokers working. Think of us as the added resource your company needs to unleash its full potential. Visit glcs.net today and keep your business driving forward. GLCS, where efficiency meets expertise. And we are back. So your values, I think, are, and I might have them wrong, but they at least talk a lot about integrity, service, leadership, family, and those values show up for the most part in everything day to day. So can you talk a little bit about that?
You bet. I don't remember what year we did that exercise, but it's been in the last 10 years, maybe 8, 9 years ago. We got together as a company and established those values. And that was fun and difficult at the same time. We still joke today that honesty wasn't a value, and neither was safety. And we joke about that because they're still very core to who we are and what we do. But really settling on those 4 words, everybody is bought in to what those mean. And it's everywhere in our office, on the road. We are definitely a family in the office. We know maybe too much about each other, but I don't know that that's a bad thing. We'll call each other out if there is a lack of integrity in something, and because we all believe in it, that is the direction that we're going. I alluded to earlier the leadership piece. Everybody leads from the seat they sit in, and it doesn't mean that you have to be the CEO. You can do anything here and lead. And service. I mean, that's what we do.
Right.
So yeah, I think especially the crew we have here that is like the conduit between our owner operators and our customers. When we've hired a lot of people over the years that have no trucking experience whatsoever, but we can teach you to spell truck. We can teach you to route a truck from A to B. We cannot teach you to have integrity or have compassion for people and treat people with respect and like human beings. And so when I look at resumes, and I still do, my new job here is phone screen for new employees because we're growing. I want the personality, and I want the core person more than I want a list of what their accomplishments have been in trucking.
I'm in alignment with that. And going back to honesty and safety. So I feel like any trucking organization that's out there, especially one that's putting itself out there in any sort of public manner, has a safety centric organization. And if you want to list it as a value, fine. But if you're not a safety centric organization, you know that already. You can tell as soon as you walk in the door. So the values are kind of a given that trucking companies are safety centric. You have to be, otherwise you kind of go out of business or you have horrible scores. And honesty, I feel, goes right with integrity. I feel like that's just part of integrity. We don't have our values necessarily listed. I think as a organization, you either are one of those that blasts your values out there, or you're kind of quiet about them, and you just know. We're very much so at GLCS. We're very much so a service-based organization and service first. But integrity above all. And if you ask any of our customers, they'll tell you that too. We'll go way above and beyond what we need to ensure that things get taken care of. And, so I feel like, you have those kind of taken care of from that angle. From hiring people, I absolutely agree. You can train, you can put the knowledge into people, especially, you look at people are investments. Their investments in time, and especially if they stay with you for years and years and years. Education can be out there, but it's hard to change someone's core. So I agree with you there. You can train integrity. I think you can train integrity, especially to someone that's young. But I mean, bringing somebody in that's been around a few years, that's maybe not as easy. So
Yeah.
it's hard to train the old dog. So. Moving along with that, then, as far as your drivers go, you don't have a very high turnover, correct?
No, I think we're at 38% this year.
So how do you achieve that, and how do you keep those drivers happy? If you don't mind talking about that, what do you feel is the differentiator there?
Yeah. We treat our owner operators like they are professional human beings, because they are both. And if they're not one or the other, they don't belong here. If they're not both, they don't belong here.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And our group, and this goes not only from dispatch, but even our back office, they have communication, whether it's on the phone or on an email, with our owner operators as well. And they're treating them with the same respect if it's asking for an extra copy of paperwork or whatever. But going the extra mile, I think, is what differentiates everybody here at Autumn, in that we know every one of our owner operators by their voice, not their truck number.
Yeah.
We probably know them by the last four numbers of their telephone number when it comes in on the caller ID. We know where they live, their spouse's name, if applicable, kids, what do they do when they're not in the truck. We really get to know them. And that, I think that's meaningful.
Yeah.
That's like, isn't that what gets us up every day, is relationship?
Yeah. That's how it should be. I mean, that's absolutely how it should be. These are, they're part of your organization. They're no different than if they're working next to you. So they're the folks that are executing, and that's how it should be. So I've never seen that any different than 20 to 30 years ago. That's the same as it's always been, and it's not any different today.
No.
And that's an important thing to do. So the drivers that are numbers are that's a huge delineation between a company that has a high turnover rate and a company that doesn't. But also allowing your staff to have the time to do that is important, and some companies don't allow that. They just don't. So they're measured on how long their phone calls are. And it's important to have those discussions, to be able to spend the 5 minutes or more when needed, and deal with the problems that come up, whether they're work related or not. So I think that's important.
I go back to my first, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
My first 2 years working under Max here, and there was no people net or anything like that back then. It was just the phone call, and there were no cell phones. So they had to either call from a shipper or a receiver or a pay phone. Really dating myself now. Yep. I would hang up the phone and he would say, "How did he sound?" And I never really knew what that meant for a long time when I started. Well, what do you mean? How did he sound? Well, did he sound like he was gritting his teeth? Did he sound tired? Did he sound happy? How did he sound? You know where he is on the map today, but how did he sound? Was something that I have carried through for 30 years here, because we do listen on the phone more than we meet people face to face in our jobs here. How do you sound? And I'm fortunate enough in the office, the other piece is, how do you look? Do you look tired? Do you look sad? Are you happy? How come? And ask those questions. But to be able to talk to these owner operators on the phone and say, "Hey, are you okay? You sound a little tired or a little off. Do you want to talk?" And then if that conversation's 20 minutes, we've got a whole team of people that can answer the phone calls that are waiting in queue right behind you.
Yep.
Taking that time.
Absolutely. It's no different than an office person coming up saying, "Hey, do you have a minute? Can we talk?" versus I got to take an extended phone call or someone coming in. It's imperative. It's imperative. So, and it's the difference between a good company and a great company. So that's my opinion. So, so over the last 3 decades, what changes have made you hopeful? Which ones worry you? Kind of, looking at it as if you take that 10,000 foot view, what's your thoughts on that? Kind of what makes you hopeful and what worries you over the last three decades, looking at it kind of now, I guess.
I used to worry about the baby boomers retiring because I didn't think there was a good pipeline of young people behind them. So I worried about that, but there's nothing to worry about. I think we do have a wonderful group of young people that are choosing this industry, whether it's behind the wheel or in the shop. We've got a generation of people that are hard workers. And so my worry that we're going to age out of our hardest working baby boomers, it's just not true. I think we've got a great demographic coming up to take the wheel. Trucking as a whole, I don't love the legislation of California AB 5 and the role that takes over defining an owner operator and independent contractor. At Autumn, we're 100% owner operator, and I believe in the American dream. And I think everybody should have a chance to own their own business. If it's 1 truck, 3 trucks, 10 trucks, or a company of all owner operators. And that bothers me that it takes that opportunity away from the American dream.
I'm in alignment on that. You look at the path to start a trucking company today, and if that becomes a nationwide thing, it makes it very difficult. The cash it takes to roll a truck under your own authority and not factor. So, and I don't want to go too far down the factoring discussion, but to appropriately roll a truck today is wildly high. Just one truck is wildly high. If you can even do it with all the compliance that's required between, buying the truck, having the insurance, getting your authority and whatnot, without aligning yourself with an organization like yours to get established and then determining what next steps might be if you want to take those steps. It's very, very hard to start a company today.
I even think about our lease purchase program here and the price jump in used trucks in COVID. Do we really want to make this investment at twice the price of what it was last year? We were strategic. We were cautious at times, but we were fortunate enough to have cash and a line of credit to do that. I don't know how anybody could have started from scratch at that time with
Sure.
used trucks at $120,000 plus.
I work with a leasing company, and they have a substantial number of trucks that they lease out. They actually stopped buying trucks for 2 years.
Yeah.
So they just were not going to put themselves into a position that they had trucks that were far too expensive that they were leasing out and taking risks on. They just weren't going to do it. So they put themselves in a poor position for 2 years until the used truck market somewhat normalized. So,
Yeah.
which is crazy that they did that, but in the long run, I think it was a very healthy move for them, because now they're not getting all these trucks repoed. So,
Right.
and I mean, they weren't a trucking company, they're just a leasing company. So they would have not, it's not like they could have rolled them in or released them or whatever. I mean, they can re-release them, but they're going to carry a substantial amount of debt on their books. So wouldn't have made sense. But yeah, it was a tough, that had to have been a tough decision at that time. So, but certainly any of these folks that bought trucks at the peak, if they're still running around with those trucks, have to be, as we're seeing the rates plummet, have to be, I don't know how they're still operating, actually, to be honest with you, if they bought during the peak. So, yeah, absolutely.
Our time there. Yep.
Step cautiously and know where you're going to land. So,
Yeah.
So thinking about that a little, or moving kind of on to the next line of questioning, I think, because I'm just looking at the time. I told you to go fast. So maybe on my side it's going fast. On your side, it might be dragging along. So faith, accountability, servicing your driver's decisions. We've talked a little bit about the hard moments in the last few years, but since you've established those values, how have they helped you navigate some of those hard moments? I mean, do you kind of fall back on them naturally now? Do they come up in decisions and discussions within the organization when you're navigating those hard moments? Just in general, how do you navigate those hard moments with those values in mind?
I mentioned earlier, everybody is bought into the value and all of them. So I mentioned that, we can call each other out if we think somebody's slipping on one of our values, but that is such a rare occasion. It's more often than not that we call each other out to say, hey, wow, you did amazing in that situation. You implemented all of our values, and way to go. I think it's 95% celebrating when we keep our values and do it right, and 5% of, hey, you knucklehead, you screwed up. How are we going to do this better next time?
Yeah.
But the faith component too. I mean, my parents have run this company as faith-filled Christian people who believe all of those values are biblical as well. Sure. And to stick to that core is important. It's who we are on the inside. It's what it says on our wall here in our office. And they go hand in hand.
Oh, that's great. So speaking of parents, you recently celebrated 45 years with Autumn. And I remember this post, probably on LinkedIn or Facebook. But you did the camouflage, and you had stories of your dad. And, what are some of the best lessons that he's passed down to you or others that come to mind, that just instantly kind of pop up when I ask that question?
Yeah. So when my dad passed away, a group of people here got together and they made a framed piece of art that had all of the Lowell-isms on it. He was very famous for repeating the same Lowell-isms over and over. And that's in my mom's office today. but he had a lot of them. But I think the one that I repeat over and over, and I think about in tough decisions, tough conversations, from even when I was a younger manager of people to now leading the company is, and here's how he used to say it: people respect what you inspect, not what you expect. So if you think about it, we can expect a driver to get somewhere on time, but if we're not inspecting, and that does not mean micromanaging, it just means checking in. We can expect them to get there on time, but I think they respect us more if we check in and inspect. How you doing?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
If my dad asked me if he had 100 tasks on my plate, the 10 years that I was the operations manager here, and I did 99 very well, he never asked me about the 99 until he asked me about the one I didn't get done first. He was an ultimate inspector. And that kept me on my toes for sure. And I always wanted to talk about the 99, but the one. And he was really good at that.
Yeah.
And
he was really good probably at knowing that one too. He knew exactly
Yeah.
what needed to be done still.
Yes.
Yeah. I know that type of person. And I just had a little moment there. So there's a guy in my history that had Rexisms. So his name was Rex. So a mentor of mine in my career. So, but when you said Lowelisms, similar thing. And when he passed, we made a book for his wife of all the Rexisms and all the different sayings that he had. So, and we gave it to his wife. Actually, I think I still have a copy of that book somewhere around here. So, but all the different sayings that he would come up with. He was our operations manager for many years. So, but yeah, that's a great message. So, so you've hit a lot of milestones, a lot of great things. What's Autumn or you still chasing? And what's next under your leadership?
Yeah. So we are just at the very beginning stages of what we're calling Autumn 3.0 here. And we've done things kind of the same way, which a lot of it is really, really good, especially as it pertains to our values. But we've gone from 85 trucks 10 years ago to 145 trucks today. And our whole crew here still has the same set of responsibilities, and it's too much for them. So for example, our dispatchers are still maintenance people, where they're making sure that the tires on our trailers are correct and making sure that our DOTs are getting done on time. And we've got some in our TMS that manages that as well, but they have so much responsibility above and beyond just profitably getting an owner operator from A to B. So we just started this 2 weeks ago. Everybody has provided what they do on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. We reduced it to Post-it notes, and we've met now 4 times. We've got one more group to go for round 1, and we're going to streamline everybody's job. And if it means taking things off of certain people's plates and we create a new job in our office that handles those things because it bogs us down from doing what we do best, that's the direction that we're going to go. And we have a tremendous amount of energy around that 3.0 initiative. We're probably going to implement a little bit of AI, but not too much, because we really don't want to lose our personality in the marketplace.
Sure.
We really want to have still that human connection, but taking some of the things that we do day to day that are boring, that a computer could do, and help dispatch especially not take their eye off the ball of what they're really here to do every day, is where we're headed. And we believe that with that change, we can go to 200 trucks pretty quick without changing who we are, without adding people, and grow.
Yeah, well, I think looking at it, the approach that you're taking, more of a scrum, so taking the post-it notes
Mhm.
and pulling everybody apart and sticking it on a wall. Do you have a office that's just full of post-it notes right now?
So we don't have a single we have a lot of windows in here, so I've got a lot
Fair
of
enough.
big paper stuck to windows, and I just begged everybody here that's under 30 years old not to judge me for Post-it notes. I'm sure there's an app that could do exactly
Yep,
what we're
there
doing.
is. I can give you a couple, so I
But
can
if if
absolutely.
if I'm in
So
charge, it's gonna organize my way in my brain,
doesn't
or I'm
matter.
not gonna
Yep,
figure it out. Yep,
doesn't matter.
yep.
However you can get it done. There's no right way or wrong way. There's the only well, actually there is. There's the right way. And the only way that's the wrong way is the way that doesn't get it done. That's my opinion on everything. Um, so we did get a comment from, this is actually from Mark Bugner, who I think is talking about the Lowellisms here. So it's a LinkedIn user, but which I'll have to message Mark and tell him how his name can pop up there. But he did say, nice, this is a huge mental health matter. I love to hear that.
Oh, very nice.
Um, I think that approach and constantly improving and then continuing, you may find that at the end of this, with how fast the world is just moving, that you might continue this at a smaller approach, looking at smaller processes and feeling that you need to just continue this and just self improve and develop ways to look at cost controls and whatnot. This is something that a lot of people do. So, and bulk legs. So not that I'm gonna work with a lot of different companies, a lot of different size, so I won't make this into a TED talk, but the bulk carriers have a tendency to lag on this unless you're hauling stuff that goes boom. So
Yeah.
those guys have a tendency to be a little bit more edgy, but so
Well, you have to be open to being adaptable.
once you start improving, don't stop improving. So
Right.
absolutely. Uh,
Yeah.
so so last question for you. When it's time to hand the keys over to somebody else, what do you want the people inside Autumn to say about the way that you led?
I hope they say I led with enthusiasm. I hope they say that I cared about everybody. I hope they say, man, maybe she does know a little bit about trucking from where I started. Uh, yeah, it's such a great place to be. I hope that uh, into the future it's carried on with the same feeling of family. And I do hope that everybody says she treated me like family, which
No,
doesn't mean you always get along
right. No,
either.
it actually probably means the opposite in a
Yeah.
lot of cases.
Yep.
But
But
it
that
means that you're, well, go ahead.
that you love each other no matter what, and you end up in a better place because of maybe a tough conversation or other. But I hope everybody says she treated me like family.
Absolutely. We were going to say the same thing. So I agree. And here's our friend, Chris Thomas.
Oh,
So,
hey, Indy.
yeah. Was hoping you'd chime in at some point. So, well, Julie, I really appreciate the time today. It's great to have you on. How can people find you if they want to reach out to you or Autumn Transport?
Yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn. If our website also has my contact information on it as well. We're all over social media as well. So I'm pretty easy to find just about everywhere.
Great. Well, I once again, I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
This was a long time in coming, and it was great hearing your story. You can reach out. Oh, I got another comment. So, Jordan Brandon. Just as a former Autumn employee, I can say Julie's leadership is applaudable. So
Aw.
thanks for the
And he
comment.
didn't know trucking when he started. And he's a
Fair enough.
successful young man. So
Oh,
thank you, Jordan.
good deal. Good deal.
Yeah.
So, so once again, appreciate you coming on. Appreciate hearing your story. Look forward to seeing you somewhere down the road, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Yep, you too. So in this business, anyone can chase growth. The real ones build it with values that last. You can hire the best, buy the flashiest tech, and scale it like crazy. But if you don't know who you are and what you stand for, none of that sticks. Leadership, it isn't about being in charge. It's about being accountable when it matters most. It's about building something your people believe in, even when no one's watching. So, if you're building a company, a culture, or a legacy, don't just focus on the freight, focus on the foundation. Stay curious, stay informed, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Until next time, drive forward with purpose and innovation. Thanks for watching.